Hi, we're working with the Eightfold Path. We're in step 4, which is called Skillful Action. And basically what we're doing is looking at what is called the 5 precepts. Precepts are rules and kind of an agreement for a particular group or a group of people or society to follow. They're not necessarily commandments like you might find in the Christian religion, but they are certainly worthwhile suggestions. These precepts are to abstain from killing, abstain from stealing, abstain from sexual misconduct, bad speech, and the abuse of intoxicants. So according to the Buddha, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying are never skillful. In fact, these 5 precepts are really the backbone well, for example, a Theravada Buddhist monk has 222 rules that when they become ordained. A nun has 311 rules. And so us lay people, non-ordained people, only have 5 to work with. So we can kind of rest easy. But these teachings are really in alignment with morality and how morality in general pertains to our practice of Buddhism, and particularly our practice of meditation. So basically we're doing things in our lives that help us to sustain our practice of concentration, which is really the key to a good meditation practice. If we do something that makes us feel uneasy or that we have regrets for, anything that will disturb us in any way is most likely something that we would call unskillful and quite possibly immoral. So let's take a look at killing, for example. The fact that we have killed countless of times and will continue to do so is something that we all live by. For example, there's an interesting story, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's a story of a blind monk that killed repeatedly, a blind monk, Buddhist monk, but yet he was enlightened at the end of his lifetime. So what happened, just as mentioned, the monk was blind. He did a great deal of walking meditation, and without realizing it, he was stepping on ants and other insects repeatedly, day after day, killing them. But he had no idea, so he had no intention because he was blind. He had no intention that he was doing this, so his repercussions were completely different than somebody else that would intentionally, try to kill insects. Or, just thinking something that intentionally tries to kill somebody, a person, as opposed to killing them in an automobile accident. It's 2 completely different things. So it has to do with intention, and this is true with all of these precepts. In certain cases, we must, or we might find that we must kill in order to survive. In other words, we might be living by the kill or be killed rule. This could be by humans or animals. So we might have to protect ourselves, or maybe even somebody else, from an animal or another human from being killed or from being harmed in some way. So we might even have to protect our property from certain situations, such as insects. What if we had termites and we had to make a decision whether to kill termites or not because they're eating our home? So there's many situations, there's the black widows and the scorpions and things like this that could harm us, so we have to be careful. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to kill these snakes and spiders and poisonous things. In most cases, we can avoid these animals and these other beings by just being very, very mindful. We don't have to harm them. So what we're saying, the point here is that we should become mindful and compassionate towards what we're looking at and what we're working with. The best thing that we can do is not harm or kill at all. And this is not really that hard to practice. For example, I've been using a glass jar to catch insects in my home and then releasing them outside. I've done this practice for years, and it's not difficult. Even scorpions. I've never been bothered by a scorpion. We have a lot of them in Arizona here, and we find them in our homes. I've never been stung by one, and I actually have never been stung by I've never heard of anybody being stung by a scorpion that actually respects them for some reason. So to deliberately abstain from these things is the idea, as much as we can anyway. Let's say let's look at stealing, another precept. Now, stealing is really a respect for another person's property. If something's not given to us, we should not take it away by stealing it or by taking it through force or by fraud or any of these means. Even being a bad employee it could be a form of stealing, such as stealing from our boss, not doing our job when we're signed up to do it, and kind of stealing time away from our boss. Taxes, not being honest on our taxes is also a form of stealing. So it's a good idea to keep this in mind, In its broadest sense, the opposite of stealing is generosity. Just like the opposite of killing is allowing life. So we should pay very conscious attention to the opposite of these precepts as we're working with them and observing them, such as the other part of stealing is cultivating generosity. So a Buddhist should give to the poor and to the sick, because if they're in need, it's really our job to pay generosity towards these people and these beings. This doesn't always mean giving them material things, though, either. A Buddhist we can give sympathy and encouragement, to those who are hurt or discouraged in some way. Now, it's interesting to note that the bad effects of stealing are poverty, misery in many different ways, and disappointment in life. So these are things to consider if we're ever making a conscious decision whether to steal or not. Now, another precept, sexual misconduct, is a very interesting topic. Generally, when we look at sexual misconduct, it's conduct that involves a third party or even more. So even though the moral standards are different in different countries and different times, things like rape and adultery and other abnormal sexual behavior that involve physical and mental injury to others should absolutely be prohibited. It is also a matter of respect for people and personal relationships. We should not indulge in sexual misconduct or any other abnormal form of sexual relationship. The effects of sexual misconduct are having, I find these very interesting, they're having too many enemies, or having many enemies, and also being hated, and having unfavorable and undesirable lives with wives and husbands. In other words, if our relationship is built on sexual misconduct, these relationships don't usually last. Okay? Now, the fourth precept, the precept of telling the truth, not lying, we are talking about refraining from telling lies, and it's really to show a respect for the truth. No good can come from telling lies, whether it's out of fun or malice. So when a Buddhist observes the fourth precept to refrain from lying, he's refrained from telling lies or even half lies or half truths, things that exaggerate or understate. And instead, we're cultivating the virtue of truthfulness, which is very important. The respect for the truth is really a way for us to have fewer quarrels and misunderstandings, and actually there would be fewer cases of false accusations, and our court system would greatly aid by more truthfulness in them. Even our political system would. Society would become more peaceful and orderly, if we would tell the truth. And actually, if one lies, we have to keep track of all these lies, which causes a great amount of energy, unnecessary wasted energy in the form of confusion in the mind. So it's much better to be honest and be truthful. Now the final precept is to refrain from the abuse of alcohol and intoxicants. This is a very interesting topic because Buddhism emphasizes wisdom. Taking intoxicants decreases and loses the seed of wisdom. Intoxicants such as drugs and liquor, smoking, etc. are harmful to our health. It seems that taking intoxicants might not be hurting others. However, if we are drunk and lose our normal consciousness, we can easily commit evil deeds and hurt others. So we really stand a greater chance of breaking all the other precepts, along with this final one, which is to abstain from intoxicants. So this fifth precept is to refrain from any drugs or any intoxicants. And some of these can be healthy when they're used as medicine, but to refrain from them and using them as an intoxicant, it guards against the loss of our mind. It really does. It's particularly important to those who meditate as well, because by refraining from intoxicants, a meditator can more easily cultivate awareness. It's a lot easier to draw our attention to something and have this clarity of mind. So to observe this precept is not only contributes to the happiness in the family, and peace in society, it also prepares a person for the practice of mental development, mental cultivation. And we're talking namely about concentration, which is really the practice of meditation. So I encourage everybody to know these 5 precepts, to refrain from killing and stealing and lying, sexual misconduct, and to refrain from indulging in intoxicants. These are the basic precepts. These are the precepts that a person might take when they go on a Buddhist retreat, for example. They can also be used as an initiation into Buddhism. I've had preceptors in different Buddhist sects that I was been working with and involved with. The preceptor would give the precepts, and I would repeat them back, and we take them very seriously. As far as taking the precepts, and at that moment we feel like we are a Buddhist, that we are a part of the Buddhist community, and that's usually how one is initiated into the community. If you have any other questions about the 5 precepts, or namely skillful actions, which is actions of body, speech, and mind, please contact me. My address or my email is below, and I hope this helps. So thank you very much.